On this week's Hockey Inside Out, who's been the biggest disappointment for the Montreal Canadiens this season? You know, aside from Marc Bergevin. Welcome to this week's show. I'm Adam Susser, and joining me today in studio is CBC Daybreak's Jessica Rusnak, Chris Nilan, and from CTV and Habs Eye on the Prize, Julian McKenzie is back with us. Thanks for being here, Julian.
Pleasure.
Okay, here's what we're going to be talking about on today's show. Number 1, which player has been the biggest disappointment for the Canadiens this season? Number 2, if making trades is hard for Marc Bergevin, why is everybody else doing it? Number 3, what are your first impressions of new defenseman Mike Reilly? Number 4, what's gotten into Jacob de la Rose? And number 5, should the Canadiens shut down Carey Price for the remainder of the season? Let's start the show. The disappointments of the Montreal Canadiens' 2017-18 campaign started long before the players hit the ice in October. The farce of a season began with signing blunders and questionable trades in the summer, continued with physical injuries and emotional injuries once the puck dropped, and culminated with a group of players who never seemed to be able to muster up any real motivation or team spirit. Fans and the media love to blame management, but we often forget that when it comes down to it, it's the players on the ice who really dictate whether their team wins or loses. With that in mind, and so many to choose from, I'll ask the panel, which player has been the biggest disappointment for the Montreal Canadiens this season?
I'm going to say the goaltender. Obviously, he had such a bad start this season. I don't think it was at all physical. It was all mental. There was something going on in his head that did not allow him to focus and play the type of hockey he's capable of. Who knows what that could be? As far as up front or on defense, I'd have to go with Jonathan Drouin. The expectation he was going to come in here and really put on a show and be the savior. Really disappointed in his play. Maybe not so much his play, his effort. You know, I see a lot of times he gives up on plays. He coasts to the bench. He doesn't skate to the bench, allowing his teammate to get into the play earlier. Takes his time. Those are probably the two biggest disappointments for me.
I would agree with Chris when it comes especially to Carey Price, because we hear it all the time that if the goaltender could be a captain of a team, Carey Price would have the C on him, and he really did not act in that leadership role that I think the team really needed from Carey Price, and he just never really seemed to get into a flow. Another player that you have to look at is Carl Alzner. Now that could be a fault of Marc Bergevin for bringing in a player and giving him a lot of money, and then him just not living up to the potential that I think Marc Bergevin was hoping that he could play for. Before he came in, people were saying, you know, this is an upgrade on Alexei Emelin. Well, he really hasn't been an upgrade. He hasn't really done much for there. So I would say those are two of the bigger disappointments.
You can't put a jersey on the cap space that the Montreal Canadiens came in with, but the fact that Marc Bergevin entered this season with the amount of space that he had to play with, that he could have used on some other notable free agents or some other acquisitions he could have done. As a result, we've seen the team play as bad as they have, and notable players on this team like Max Pacioretty haven't been as effective without some of the teammates they've had in the past. You know, having guys like Alex Radulov and Andrei Markov were so beneficial to the Montreal Canadiens, and now they're not there. So it was really hard for me to come up with an answer to this question just because of the fact that Marc Bergevin, just with the way this team was constructed from last season to this season, it already wasn't better. So we're already going into being a disappointment. And getting a guy like Jonathan Drouin, I still think that if you have better teammates around him, he'd be a much better player on that team. And it's hard to give a guy like him an honor like disappointment for this squad. So I'll go with Carl Alzner just because they gave him a whole ton of money and he hasn't really looked like a capable top 4 defenseman. But it's a really hard answer.
Okay, so maybe Carl Alzner and the $8.5 million man who just wasn't there.
Exactly.
Okay, going back to Jonathan Drouin, how much do you think can be of his disappointing season can be blamed on the fact that maybe he's playing out of position?
Yes, I absolutely think that's one of the biggest reasons why. Remember, this was a guy who was heaped with a whole ton of expectations and was told, hey, you're our new #1 center now. This is a guy who's normally playing wing. I know in junior he's played center before, but in the NHL level it's a little different. So a lot of expectations were heaped onto him to play this completely new position, a whole bunch of new responsibilities, and he's still a young player who's still going to get better. So it's kind of hard for me to consider Jonathan Drouin a disappointment when the cards were kind of stacked against him from the beginning.
I don't know, during the offseason when they talked to him about playing center, he was all, you know what, I'm going to do it. This is my way to elevate my game and show everyone that I can be that center. And then when he wasn't able to live up to the potential, then it was kind of like he backtracked in a way, and it's like, well, I'm playing out of position, or he kind of let that narrative keep going, and he didn't sort of have that same drive, like, I'm coming to Montreal, I'm a French Canadian, I'm embracing this role. And then when things were not going so well, he kind of, you know, stepped out and just kind of didn't care as much.
For sure. He didn't have a problem signing the contract, and everything was great with that. And he did say that. He didn't have a problem with going to center ice. And now that things aren't going well, the problem I have is the effort. And when I see him on nights give up on plays, doesn't skate to the bench, it's got nothing to do with the contract, nothing to do with playing center, got nothing to do with playing wing. It has all to do with character, and that worries me.
Okay. I mean, I would think it would be hard for most players when there's a lack of effort from the team in general. It's take a special kind of player to put the amount of effort that maybe Brendan Gallagher puts.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, if you look at it, Brendan Gallagher is the only guy who's been able to sort of push all the outside noise out and just say, you know what, we might be a team that's on the losing track right now, but I'm going to play as if I'm playing on a team that's going into the playoffs and being a Stanley Cup contender.
Okay. So Marc Bergevin has been famously quoted as saying, making trades is hard, yet, believe it or not, other general managers manage to make trades in this league. Why do you think Marc Bergevin can't?
I think he's failed, obviously, in trade deadline. I think he tried to do something. I think he tried to move someone, but I think he asked for too much. I think they were looking at some of the other deals that were made, and Nash and Duchesne, and he wanted a similar price for, let's say, number 67, Max Pacioretty. And he couldn't move him because he was asking for too much. So as far as making deals, again, he's certainly under the microscope like never before. Some of his deals obviously have not worked out. I thought he was going to do something at the deadline. But again, I've heard him say it time and time again, whether we believe what he does is good for the team, he always says, I'm not going to spend money just to spend money. I'm not going to make a trade unless it's really going to help this team. And obviously, a lot of the moves he has made have hurt this team. And the ones he hasn't made have also hurt it.
Well, it also doesn't make his life easy when you have nothing good to try to entice other general managers with. That they don't really have any prospects. The only one that they had was Sergachev, and now he's with Tampa Bay. And then the players they have, there's only a few that other teams are really interested in. And then I think that's what he's really banking on, that he's hoping that these few little pieces that he has can get him something in return for it. So in a way, it's like Marc Bergevin sort of shot himself in the foot by not really having a good prospect pool and not being able to entice other players to sign in Montreal or get other GMs to trade and have a player come to Montreal.
I think the question it's not a question of whether Marc Bergevin can make a trade. Remember back in November when the reports were going around that Bergevin was the most active GM. I think since November he's made about 6 or 7 trades. He's made a lot of small trades. He can make trades. It's a question of him hitting the home run. And when he's tried to make those home run trades, the Subban trade, the Sergachev trade, he didn't necessarily get an ideal return. I understand Drouin was what we got for Mikhail Sergachev, but again, he needs a whole bunch of other teammates around him. The Subban trade could have been a lot better if he had gotten a number 1 center for him. It's a question of making the home run trades be a lot better as opposed to like just being a high volume trader, which that's what Marc Bergevin is. It's just about getting the right guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to just build a quality team in the NHL, I think is more the problem. At the trade deadline, defenseman Mike Reilly was acquired from Minnesota. He has 3 points in 4 games with the Canadiens. What are your first impressions of Mike Reilly?
Well, he's an upgrade on Joe Morrow, so that's positive of a minor trade that Marc Bergevin made. But again, it's just time will tell with him. That a lot of times a player comes to a new team, and it's just sort of the adrenaline of being with the new team and playing off that. But so far he's looked good. The Canadiens did not give up much for him. But I find there's a lot of those kind of defensemen on this team, and if he wants a better team going forward, he kind of needs a little bit more of a 1 or 2 defenseman.
This is a guy who has some speed. He's able to carry the puck, which is what the Canadiens need. The problem is that he's not a number one ideal puck-moving defenseman. So this is a typical Marc Bergevin move. Get a good depth guy. Seems okay. Playing a lot better with his new team than he was with his old team. So Bergevin may end up coming out as a winner on this one. That being said, I don't see him as more than a potential top 4 defenseman at his best.
Okay.
Yeah, I look at him as a third pairing D. And again, you're going to see a lot of guys down the stretch here that haven't played as much as they normally do, and they're going to get opportunity. It's like a mini training camp here. I got to watch guys more than just a couple games, but he's certainly done okay since he's been here.
He forgot to pack his dress pants when he was traded to Montreal.
That's the funniest story.
Luckily, his mom was there to come here and bring him new dress pants.
Thank God. He scored 2 goals against New Jersey on Tuesday night. He's got 4 points in the last 4 games. What's gotten into Jacob de la Rose?
Ooh, it's so funny. He kicked the puck up to his stick, to his forehand. He missed on his forehand, and thank God he got it in his backhand. But, right place, right time, going the net. Both of them going to the net. He scored both of them from almost in the blue paint. Good for him. And the second one, not as much, but he went to the net hard, and that's a good thing. Good for him. Again, he's got some opportunities this year, but he always seems to just hit the goalie when he gets them.
I think right now for him that he's realizing, like we've been saying, that this is kind of like a training camp. This is their opportunity for players like Jacob de la Rose to show what they have, and especially with Thomas Plekanec getting traded, he needs to make the most of this, and maybe something has clicked in his head that he really needs to start firing up his game, and so far he's been rewarded for it. He says that he has been playing with more confidence, and hopefully after scoring 2 goals that it will help him, elevate that confidence even more and sort of impress the management with the Canadiens. But it's been, he's been a frustrating player, I would say, to watch. As Chris said, he's had so many chances.
Does he have a heartbeat?
Maybe.
I don't
Let's
know.
Hope.
They check a pulse for him. But yeah, I was thinking after the Thomas Plekanec trade happened, whether he would take this opportunity to step in and finally be that true defensive forward in his absence. He ended up scoring some goals. He ended up doing the opposite of what I figured he'd do. But yeah, as Chris said, if you go to the net, good things are going to happen. So good on Jacob de la Rose for picking up some points in his last few games. But I kind of want to see more of a sample size here. Is that good? I don't expect a 20-goal scorer season out of Jacob de la Rose. But if he steps up and he ends up being a dependable third-line center with more confidence, maybe he's going to end up being a good player for the Canadiens down the road. But I still need more games.
Okay. After taking a shot to the mask on February 22nd against Philadelphia, Carey Price was sidelined with a concussion, although he's started skating again since the past few days. Do you think the Canadiens should sideline Carey Price for the remainder of the season?
It's not worth playing him for the rest of the year, honestly. Personally, I think with the year that he's had, where he doesn't seem as if he's mentally there, he's dealt with some injuries. You already have Max Pacioretty on the shelf. There's not much to play for left in the year. What's the point of bringing back Carey Price for 3-4 games at the end of the year when Antti Niemi has been doing just fine in net? He's playing for a new opportunity next season, whether it's backing up here or backing up somewhere else. Let Charlie Lindgren get some minutes as well. That would be a cool idea just to see him get some more starts. He did all right this season when he was playing. Even Zach Fucale. I know a lot of people were talking about that suggestion in the last few days, maybe even seeing what he could do in the net. Let some of the younger guys, let some of the backup players play instead of putting Carey Price out there for just 3-4 games.
Yeah.
I think it's really up to Carey Price. If he gets the clearance from the doctors and he's able to play, he's the guy that led this team for many, many years. And yes, it's been a bad season for him, but choose what he wants to do. Does he want to end the season and maybe end it with a few good games under his belt and feel good about himself heading into the offseason? I don't really think it's no harm if he does play to end the season.
Yeah, I could care less if he played another game this year. I would write this one off and look at, Lindgren for an extended period. I think you know what Niemi can do. And then I'd even look at Fucale. Unless they already had their mind made up on Fucale, and kind of think they do. He was in the East Coast Hockey League.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I would want to see him in some NHL games. Maybe they don't want to do that. They don't want to get his hopes up. But, yeah, I wouldn't put Price in. And not so much because he took a shot off the head, but you know, the knee injury of the past. Why even take a chance with him when you've had such a horrendous year? Let him start fresh next year.
If I had to bet, I'd say that Carey Price does not want to play. It seems like he's just been emotionally checked out since
that's
game
for
one.
sure.
I don't think he's dying to get back to the ice.
Yeah, I don't think he is either.
You know, he needs a rest. He needs a serious rest. That is our show. We want to thank you all for tuning in. We want to congratulate David Darcy, who is the winner of the Most Creative Insult contest last week, calling fans who booed Max Pacioretty at the Bell Center Neanderthalic wastes of human genes. Thanks for playing, David. This week, we want to know which player you think has been the biggest disappointment of the season. Let us know in the comments section below. I'm Adam Susser, and I'll see you next Thursday.